Just because you lost the finals, sure, it might leave a scar, doesn't mean you can't climb again.
I can treat myself and I don't need nobody else, no one else, no. And I'm going on my own and I don't need you to feel at home, no. Never felt so alive.
We're here to stay, and we're gonna dominate.
In Europe, we've got nothing else to prove. We are just gonna keep winning.
I think no one of us ever tasted the victory of winning a LEC final, but the hunger is what's driving us.
I know that we can be a really good team, and I would really like to go to Worlds.
The goal here is to be G2 and to get the trophy back.
We're counted as one of the top teams. Our goal for this split is going to Worlds. To do that, we obviously need to reach the top.
It's great to be back again, and I'm excited to play against real competition again and still show that I'm one of the best AD carries in the league.
And I don't need you to feel at home, no. Never felt so alive while you're trying so hard to survive, You're always feeling good.
We are a very underestimated team. I think with the changes that we made, we're gonna be very dangerous.
The rookies have risen up.
G2 are inevitable. G2 are inescapable. 7 titles for G2. Flashing in, Razzle. Look at where the power could be.
Come out. $1.5 million twin bangs. That manages to stun 2. The knockup from Wonder is fantastic. G2 have turned this game around.
Ripper cannot survive for that true shot barrage. Yanko's going to jump into the pit. He goes on something. The dive's going to dunk the Soraka back down. Wombo combo!
He's on the card, and Reckless sends him packing with a quadra.
LEC studio. The Super Week continues here in the summer split as teams look to hit the ground running. We'll see what surprises today will bring, and I'm joined by Ender and Quickshot for the first few games and for this ready check. Cool stuff.
I'm very excited. Day 2 of 3 first Super Week. We haven't had them in many, many years.
Yeah.
But it's really nice. We got 5 full games yesterday. A slower meta than maybe I was hoping for.
Sure.
But I want to see where it establishes and where it lands.
I'm just glad to be in the studio again. I know we said it like a million times yesterday, but like the games are great, don't get me wrong. Just seeing everyone, warms my heart.
I like my flat, but like this is so much better. Like it's great. And well, it showed yesterday in a lot of the games, and we kicked everything off on our opening day, and it all culminated in that game 5, an epic battle between Fnatic and Misfits. We set it up, we built it up, Kobbe versus Reckless, and man, did they deliver.
This was just a ridiculous game. I'm still reeling after seeing this one because for so long it looked like Misfits
Misfits were dominating. You know, Kabe coming back, getting the kills in the bot lane, Febiven, Zoe looking absolutely unstoppable. But then it was at this Baron steal from Reckless that everything changed. Misfits had just gotten 3 inhibitors. Fnatic get this Baron though, and suddenly the game turned right on its
You
head.
can never count Fnatic out, and I actually turned to you, Ender, when we were casting the game, and I said, what odds do you give Fnatic to win? You rolled your eyes at me, and I was like, I just got this feeling. Look, what Fnatic did was fantastic. I do want to give just a little bit of color to the Febiven point, by the way. He had 949 damage per minute, and he had the 3rd highest gold on his team. His effectiveness with the items he had and the way that he played was simply phenomenal.
And the reason why the game looked, frankly, unwinnable from Fnatic's perspective was because as Misfits are marching towards their base, Feb and Zoe kept finding these sleeps onto Hillis, Sang, Selfmade, all these people, and destroying them. And that's how they got so many structures, the inhibitors, and everything, but it just wasn't enough at the end of the day.
And it's always a Fnatic, man. You can't give them anything because they will turn those games around, and that's what's great to see. And it is a hard one to interpret from the side of Misfits. We spoke to Kabe and PGL, and he said, I'm going to go talk to my team. It really sucks because they played so well.
But super important to note as well, Kabe back in the roster, DOS in the support role. It is 2 out of the 5 players that are new, right? So the way they played, the punches they threw, I am excited. I want to see consistency. Like, it was a hell of a debut. Do it again today, do it again tomorrow.
Well, I'm on the Misfits hype train. I don't care what you say. I am. Really hyped to watch it. So no surprises there. Fnatic in the end won. G2 also won, but there are some more upsets. Team Vitality, SK Gaming, 2 of the teams that were at the bottom of the standings in spring, claimed their first victories.
Yeah, and I mean, Team Vitality especially, you know, came out, had a really solid performance in their opener. Slow, steady wins the race for them, but it was SK with this insane upset against Origin, where quite frankly, they just played the map better than OG. Their vision control through the rivers was superior. The way they played through mid lane first just kind of left OG scrambling as to what to actually do.
I was a fan of the draft as well, and we talked so much about it backstage. I saw a lot of commentary on socials as well around what SK had done and how it just made a little bit more sense within the context of the bigger picture. Big surprise. I'm not too shocked though. It's day 1, it's game 1. Vitality, on the other hand, I'm happy to see them pick up the win. They only picked up 2 wins in the spring split. This is already halfway to tying that record.
For them.
And again, very clean. You know, they controlled the game.
And the important thing about this Vitality win, even though there's so many new faces, right? You know, NG in the jungle, Melitza also. People have been waiting for him for this entire year, and he's finally on the stage. But it wasn't the typical story where it's like these couple rookies come in, they super overperform, they dominate the competition. No, Vitality played a strong team game, and in a slow, steady type meta where it favors team play over individuals popping off and, you know, showcasing their strength. That is a very good look on day 1 for Vitality.
What was the word? Slow, steady, scaling, team fight, meta. We got a lot of that yesterday.
Yeah.
I want to see how it plays out. I was excited to see the gangplank from Misfits in the top lane. I was also happy to see XL at least trying the Kale in the top lane. And I want to see what's going to stick whenever it's early in the split and early on really the discovery of what works at the competitive level on a patch. The front runners, people who are willing to take those shots, are the ones that can help define it. So I want to see how it settles today and tomorrow.
Now, the thing that was really interesting to me was that not all 5 of our games were the super slow and steady, right? There were 2 games, the bookends, right? We had G2 versus Mad Lions, that was fast, and also the final game with Fnatic and Misfits. Even though it was very long, it was very high pace, and the 2 champions that really, you know, spearheaded this for them were Kalista and Vars. It comes down to what is the first pick in these drafts, because in the other games, it was the Trundles, it was all this boring stuff. No, here, when you go for early game ADCs...
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, but like both these champions are built to dominate the lane, have a very strong mid game for Vars. It's his sieging and his poke for Kalista. It's her skirmishing, her team fighting. These champions defined the pace of the games, and for everyone watching at home, you're going to be able to know if you're getting the fast game or the slow game, depending on these drafts.
And of course, again, almost every other match featured Aphelios Ezreal in some capacity, way, shape, or form, and there's a growing sentiment. Get ready for 8 weeks of Aphelios versus Ezreal. I'm hoping that if we can see more Varus, more Kalista, if teams are more willing to play those picks, and also, you know, not put a tank in that top lane, maybe we can see some diversity. Look, it's a 5-game sample size.
Yes.
It's too early to define, but I really am happy that we get 15 games instead of 10 on this patch to see how it plays out.
And I hope that the trend continues, that we have the teams that take the dare and take these champions and push in the early game and don't just conform to the meta, because those have been very successful in the past. Some of the marksmen we saw on the Rift yesterday played by a lot of our great marksmen in the league. It is a stacked role, this split. Trevor, who caught your eye yesterday in the bot lane?
So there's 3 players that I would like to take a closer look at. So we're going to look at 3 of the high performers from yesterday. It is slightly longer games in the meta right now, and we're focusing on late game team fights, and I was impressed with these bot laners, starting with Comp from Vitality. Now, the Vitality bot lane, it is a Greek duo. Comp and Lavrov were integral to their win yesterday, and the Ezreal-Yumi combination was consistent all game long. They controlled Sjokz, they were able to pick up the win at every single stage, and very impressively, Comp dealt 925 damage per minute, which is mind-boggling. I've said it once already, I'm going to say it again. It helped Vitality pick up already 50% of the wins they accrued during the spring split. Next up, I'm turning my attention to Kobbe. The return to EU was incredible to watch. Misfits demonstrated they are here to compete with the best. A first-pick Kalista signaled the game plan crystal clear. Kobbe wanted to win the 2v2 in the bottom lane, which he did, then followed up with great skirmishes across the map, plus 50% kill share for the AD carry. Unfortunately for the team, though, the Baron call cost Misfits the entire game. The result does not change the fact that Kobbe looked incredible, and I'm hopeful that Misfits can replicate this level of performance all split long. And finally, Umayan is back, and holy crap, was that a powerful game. Umayan laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. He does not shy away from the sword, finishing the game with a scoreline of 9-0-9, and his Varus quiver rattled against Mad Lion's sides with a 37 CSD at 15. 37! Perkz and G2 won that game in dominating style. It felt personal to me. It felt like they were avenging the loss to Mad Lions from Spring Split. Later today, they will be taking on OG, and I'm anticipating Umayan to take the stage once more.
My goal is to win.
I have won many titles at this point in Europe, but the real goal is Worlds.
Where the team should be motivated by losing to us. They all want to really badly beat us and win the split. It's up to us to not lose and falter to our own complacency.
No one of us ever tasted the victory of winning a LEC final.
They have beaten me in the final. They 3-0'd me, and it wasn't even close.
Upset. Oh, a great hook from Destiny stops Upset from getting caught out. Now he's able to flash, but Whippo able to land that final Darking Blade, and he takes him out.
The hunger is what's driving us.
Despite his amazing statistics, Upset has never been able to deliver or lift the trophy. It must be incredibly frustrating for him to watch these new ADCs just swap around positions and for him to always be left behind. G2 at this point have nothing to prove domestically, whereas Origin, they are trying to stop G2 in their tracks.
Perkz gets collapsed on. Oh, Perkz jumps forward, dashes back straight into his death.
In my opinion, the players on Origin need to be emboldened and empowered to make those riskier decisions.
Origin, you know what you're going to get from everything.
You have to win 45 minutes.
Are playing too safe in first game.
Oh no, I just rather watch paint dry.
Honestly, I don't think that they have like a similar understanding of the game as me. But I don't feel like we proved anyone wrong until we win the split.
Perhaps has to flash away with the Cosmic Radiance. Maybe it was all a bait from G2 as they open up the showstopper coming out. Wonder wasn't in the invulnerability, and now he falls. The follow-up is there as Nuta gets another kill. But that's 3 for 1 in favor of OG.
To challenge them, we're not going to be able to abuse their weaknesses as much. We just need to be a really good team ourselves if we want to beat them.
1v1 in the bottom lane. Now Farmy winning out early on. The Blade of the Moon coming out as well, and Wonder really doesn't get to connect. Wonder will dash across the wall, but now Farmy's on the chase.
My motivation since I've joined LEC has always been to win a split.
But the chains locks out Farmy in place. Caps with a pentakill. Look at Nuke, he's already dead. Caps has killed him. Caps able to take out Upset, able to take out our Farmy. Give him another penta.
The real goal is Worlds, and it always will be.
But here comes Nuke. Upset still alive, doesn't have the bullet time quite yet. Big He's got a ball. Wonder's still alive, but now he's in a 2v1. However, Nuta ticking away. He manages to secure the triple.
They're gonna try to win Worlds, and we're gonna try to win against them.
Getting the damage down, but they can't quite get onto the Baron. The Baron is taken. It goes across to G2, and Nuta is dead. Perks has secured it.
Caps and me are just like much better than any other mid in LEC.
Which is hunting and running. He wants to make it happen. Feathers fly, and upset is still not yet done. Calls the Feathers back!
I just really want to prove to myself that I can be the best. I really just want to show that all the time I've put in is actually worth it and that I can achieve something great.
Goosebumps, wonderful video, and it just kind of shows the way every team in the league but G2 feels about G2 is we have to beat them, we have to go through them. Meanwhile, G2, I don't even know who you are. Yep. And it's the same here because they're looking towards Worlds, but OG, after that loss yesterday, they really have to show up today.
They absolutely do. And the thing is, I'm actually going to be more judging of OG's performances today and tomorrow against Misfits. And the reason for that, I've spoken to a lot of coaches and a lot of analysts coming into week 1, and every single team internalizes their prep. They have weeks of scrims and research, and the first few games on stage, online or not, is about justifying your research, justifying the assumptions that you made. Yesterday, I think the composition had a play in why OG lost the game. I did see from them more skirmishes, more willingness to fight early. They just didn't win those, right? So I want to see what happens today. I want to see if they come in. I know for a fact that against G2, they have to pick those fights.
Yeah, it also felt very much like a week 1 team performance from Origin, right? Like the things that they were good at, a lot of the time, Xerxes, efficiency in the jungle wasn't quite there for me. So I think if they can shake that off and get back to what worked, they're going to stand a much better.
I'm going to be a tad harsher, actually.
Sure.
This is a team that we always praise for having the basics down, and more than the basics, the plans, the preparations, the decisions to make in the game. And yes, sometimes it goes too long and they drop the ball, but they win a lot of those games. I saw nothing of that yesterday. I saw an SK that was much more prepared. Do you allow them to use the excuse, I'm going to call it that, of, well, it was only the first game, if it's versus an opponent that was last place in spring?
I don't think it's an excuse. What I think is it was the fault of the players in game.
Okay.
Right? When you look at that draft and you looked at that MF Nautilus down bottom lane, it was about winning that 2v2, getting ahead. It didn't work. Trick played the set in the jungle who was able to skirmish and have an impact early. That surprised ZaZee. I frankly think they didn't deliver. But I also think to myself, if you're going to go into a weekend, a 3-game weekend to start the Summer Split, these unique scenarios, hypothetically, where do you focus your energies, right? Now, I don't want an excuse. I don't want to make an excuse, right?
I can follow you.
I expect this team to beat SK, and I'm extremely disappointed that they didn't. But I will be much more harsh tomorrow once I see how today goes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here, and this is also because we have great admiration for this team, and we know what this team is capable of, right? But that's why this is so interesting, because now they're up against the giant in G2 Esports. And then yesterday, G2, they smashed Mad Lions.
Yeah, I mean, G2 were incredible in their early game. You sort of got, memories of peak G2 performances. As soon as they see Shadow for just 1 second down towards the bot side, they immediately attack in the top lane with the teleport from Caps into a dive up there. They're then moving down bot side, zoning people off of the waves. It was picture perfect from G2 in the way they played the map. And then also seeing the return of Perks to the bot lane was a beauty to behold.
I mean, Umayan was insane yesterday, and I'm going to ask you to cast your mind back to when G2 and OG played at the end of the spring split. There was a lot more skirmishes. OG was willing and committed to picking those fights. And when I spoke to Deficio about this, he said when you play against G2, you have to commit to those engages. Yesterday, I saw OG committing to engages against SK. I'm expecting it to be a bloodbath. I'm expecting there to be a lot of fights. And what it's going to boil down to is execution in game. If G2 play the way they did yesterday, they will smash OG. OG have to clean the game up today, game 5.
Yeah, we've seen glimpses that they can do it, right? And this is the moment to do it. Fantastic stuff. Really excited for that match of the week. It is game 5. So you're going to have to wait for it just a little bit. We had a bit of fire, I think, already in our discussions about OG, but it's time to bring some more fire before today's action with some Sjokz statements.
And of course, it's after 1 game sample size. You have to have like the most overblown, right? That's why I'm here.
The season's already over.
All right. First one of the Sjokz statements is SK will definitely make it to playoffs. 1 game sample size. Let's go.
Definitely is the strong word.
Definitely is a very hot take.
But the thing is, they only have to be better than 4 other teams, right?
Yeah.
And I know that's, but like seeing Excel yesterday, question marks around Vitality and Shell.
Okay, don't think about the bottom teams, right?
Yes.
G2, Fnatic.
Yes.
OG, we'll still give him the benefit of the doubt. Mad Lions, Misfits, that's 5 right there. Who else are you throwing in? Rogue, that's
my 6.
Will SK definitely make playoffs? I don't think so.
I'm going to go the same, and I'm going to go the same because of what you just said. Mad Lions, Rogue, Misfits, I see being above them. That makes them 7 to me.
And you know what I like? We wouldn't have even discussed this last split, right?
Yes.
But the fact that they had a great performance yesterday and it seems like they have some new fire makes us think this is possible.
Yeah.
So.
And can I say shout out to Crownshot's Ezreal because it was absolutely on fire in the team fights. He was doing some nasty things.
925 damage per minute.
Do you have those all just in your head?
I do, yes.
You have quoted
It's the
like
only way. It's
damage.
the only way I felt comfortable. I went to our stats team and I'm like, right, feed me
Give
the
me
data.
all
I
the
have more
stats.
for you coming later today as well.
All right, love it. So, next Sjokz statement. OG will choke before finals again.
Yes. Not even a question.
Aw,
the question is.
that's
The question
so
is.
harsh.
No. I'm actually going to make it harsher. The question is, will it be during the regular season or during playoffs? Maybe both. Yes. I'm going to stop there.
The question is if choke is the right word.
Oh, wait, that's even harsher.
So what would you? What would
I just
you
think it's
replace
too
it
harsh because I believe in these players to step up when it matters. I just don't know if they reach the level at that point to make it. That's what I mean.
Let me say this. I think this is going too far again because if you actually think back to what happened in Spring Split, them getting 4th place, you can say maybe they needed better placement in the regular season, wasn't necessarily their fault. They had to play against G2 to even make it to the top 3 because Mad Lions had the upset. So a lot of people will still say Origin in a head-to-head against Mad Lions would have been 3rd. So I think saying they will choke before finals again, too far.
This is why it's a shocking statement, so you can actually refute it. But yeah, I agree. We're being very harsh on them. Hopefully they understand.
Hopefully they don't. Hopefully they don't
understand.
This is an entertainment product, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to Fisher.
All right, there we go. Yeah, that's it. It's okay. We can all blame it on the divorce.
Exactly.
It's fine. Hot take 3. Febiven is the LEC's 2nd best mid laner.
Yes. Right now, yes. So, again, judging off of day 1, when I'm looking at 2nd best mid laner, I last split was looking at a Febiven or a Nemesis. Yesterday's performance, huge gap between the two. Now I know Nemesis obviously underperformed, and I think it's still going to be a close fight between the two of them, but it would not be a huge surprise to me to see Febiven make that spot his own by the end of the season.
I can't argue against it. The only thing I'm trying to think about is like, how would I incorporate Perks into this list as well? I know he's not there anymore.
Okay, no, that's true. He's the 3rd best because you have Caps and then...
That was where my head was at, and it's not a fair fight, but yes, in the actual starting mid laners, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he could be #1 at the end of the split. I think the development we've seen from Febiven since he's been back in the rotation for Misfits has been staggering.
What a story would be to unseat Caps, if it were to happen. If it were to happen. And I mean, the odds are not with him, I think.
Yeah.
But holy moly, we'll have to see.
I mean, he's been playing phenomenal. I feel those were some like shocks in statements.
Maybe it's just hot in here. I don't know.
I don't know either. I think it's a bit of both. So let's cool down and see what we have in store for today. Match of the week, Game 5. We've talked your ear off about it. You just have to tune in, you know. But you can also tune in to Kabi versus Hans Sama and Rogue versus Misfits, which is again a bout of some great AD carries here in Europe.
It really is. The return of Kabi, he had a fantastic game yesterday. Hans Sama just popped off as well. So I want to see them go head to head. And I'm also interested to see some gut checks now. How is Misfits and Rogue going to match up? We just saw them talking about it. And now Vitality. What can they do against much stronger opposition, you know, in comparison to yesterday?
Call an upset.
No.
And don't say Origin because that joke is overused. Yeah,
I thought you were trying to tell me Vitality was going to be Fnatic. No, that's. I'll give you some percentages. Fnatic going to win that 99.9%. Call an upset.
That's actually really tough because I think most of the games, with the exception of 4 and 5, are even.
That's why
the only like upset on paper would be OG over G2, which I don't think is going to happen. So
no upsets today. Expected results.
All right. Vitality might be. Let's see. Well, in any case, there were some upsets yesterday. One of them was SK over OG, and SK's reworked lineup pulled off a huge upset there. So let's see what ZaZee had to say about his first LEC game.
Thank you, Sjokz, and thank you, ZaZee, for joining me. Congrats on beating OG yesterday.
Thank you.
How do you feel after this first day? Because to me, coming as a new player, facing one of the top teams, didn't look like an easy challenge, but how was it for you?
It was really exciting for me because I expect OG to be a top 4 team, and that we beat them shows that we have the potential to also be a top 4 team.
Yeah, promising, especially after the recent changes operated with SK. We'll talk about this a bit later, but first, I want to know, how did you react when you saw this summer schedule and saw that you would go against NukeDuck on the first competitive game on stage?
To be honest, I was really nervous because I always saw up to Nuke, like he has a huge champion pool and he's a really good player, really consistent player as well. So I was really nervous, but also really hyped to play against him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can imagine that. I mean, beating him on your first showing proves something here. And as I said, SK has to work around the new dynamic with you within the team right now. So tell me, how did you beat Origin in the end?
I think just through a better draft and also better team play. I don't know, it's hard to say, honestly, because it's just the first game, but I think we're just a better team on that day.
Yeah, you were the better team on that day for sure. And I want to know, how has it been with SK since you joined the team? Working with them, having to work in this new LEC environment? Tell me about it.
I really like all the players and the staff. I think it's really professional, but also really friendly. So I think I'm very welcome here, and I think that I will develop a lot here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys have in the box. Now, here today you will go against Schalke 04 in about a few minutes. Tell me about this game. How do you feel about it?
I think that Schalke is one of the worst teams in the league right now. I think that we should be coming in as favorites. And yeah, I think I'm expecting us to win today.
Well, we'll see about that in a few minutes. Thank you very much, ZaZee, for the interview, and congrats on joining the LEC once again.
Thank you.
Now back to you, Sjokz.
Thank you very much, Laure, and thank you, ZaZee. This is what's always so cool. It's like, oh, this is a player I was looking up to, and then I found myself playing against him, and in this case, beating him. You just see how fast this new talent keeps rising, and ZaZee could very well be one of the new EU mids.
Hey, I mean, he kind of owned Nuke, right? Nuke getting a little too far forward in there, and all of a sudden...
We're done. We're not going to rag on OG anymore.
Zeroed him back and got the kill.
Come on. I mean, we've used it all up. No, but to be serious, it's nice to hear from him. Soft-spoken lad, but great on the Rift, and I think we heralded SK for the changes, bringing in that new mid laner, Gen X in the top lane, and overall they got their first victory, and it was over OG. So they have a lot to build on going into the next couple of games.
Yeah, and the interesting thing to me is because of the meta and the types of games we're seeing, it's so hard to judge these new rookies when they come in because it is about team play, and you heard ZaZee talking about that in the interviews. How do we win? Oh, we just had a better draft and had the better team play on the day. So I am excited to see where he can go from here.
Yeah, and I want to focus in on some of the elements of that draft as well, because what we saw coming out of SK was a slightly easier to execute team composition. They had a really, really strong scaling in the Azir, the Ezreal, really strong initiation with their Ornn up in that top lane as well. And frankly speaking, they put themselves into very good positions. Trick played that set. Here's the big question mark for me. Can Trick actually deliver and perform to the level that we expected from him during the spring split? And frankly put, the options that OG put forward, the MF Nautilus, it did nothing to stop them. Crownshot is famous for his Ezreal. He was fantastic on it, and he was one of the real big reasons that this team was able to go ahead. And I'm expecting similar if the team can get a similar style comp today.
And the thing for SK in this game was with this draft, they were just able to take control over the map so easily. You have really strong backliners, the Ezreal, as you mentioned, the engage from range too with your support. You got an Ornn up in the top lane. They could just sort of walk into OG's jungle whenever they wanted to without being at much risk, and they just played the map better on top of it. It meant they were getting better vision control, it meant they were getting priority over mid lane, and that converted into so many objectives for the team.
What we talked about with Vitality, the fact that it wasn't one person popping off, but just taking the right steps in the game, that was the same from SK. They waited, they took the right decisions, and they pushed their advantages where they could, and eventually got the win.
And if you've actually looked at the skirmishes and the fights that OG as well as SK had yesterday a number of times, it went SK's way over and over. Multiple positioning, like advantages, shall we say, that went the way of SK. And I think when we look at the two games today and how Schalke are actually going to perform, all German matchup, bragging rights on the line.
True.
The way in which Schalke lost their game to Vitality yesterday is the way in which SK beat OG. By the transitive properties of one-game sample size analysis, this gives SK the advantage. What I really like, though, is ZaZee very, very confident, saying Schalke he believes is one of the weakest teams. We saw in terms of just how the single games played out yesterday. If you just do carbon copy, I feel that SK have the advantage. I'm not going to say heavy favorites, but just based on what we've seen, I would anticipate them to be the lead.
Right, and if I'm going to give like any sort of silver lining over to Schalke in this matchup, not to remedy a lot of the mistakes he made yesterday, but a lot of them were building errors big time, right? Not having grievous wounds versus such a heavy healing composition, going lethality on the grave. So these are very easy fixes for them coming into the day. If they can just be like, fix 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, it's not actually changing our play. Whether or not it's enough to take down SK, Probably not, but it's something at least.
And for me, when I want to see a little bit more from Sjokz, the end of Spring Split, Sjokz was the thorn in every other team's side. They found a rhythm and a strength with Inax that had not been there for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the split, and they were very, very influential in impacting the final standings of the regular season. I didn't see a lot of life. I didn't see a lot of fire from yesterday, so I want to see them picking a few more engages, being a little bit more willing to get involved in the game at an earlier stage, because their opponents ran around circles in them yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's similar to me as for Origin. Like, when I look at this roster, I know they can do better.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the danger that I think, and I think they've disputed that, the fact that they're a streaky team, but you don't go ahead and lose 7-8 games in a row and then win 7-8 if you're not a streaky
team. Okay, to be fair, they did like multiple roster changes to get themselves out of losing 8 games in a row.
That's a great point. That's a great point. But I just want to say, you have 3 games now, right? So you have such a unique opportunity to show such a better version of yourself on day 2. How are they going to shift gears? What are the priorities they have to put on this game in order to beat them?
And it's kind of a unique challenge for Sjokz, because week 1 you play against Vitality yesterday, you play against SK today. These are in theory some of the weaker teams in the LEC, so they have to prove themselves right off the bat, because they don't get to face these guys for a long time now. These wins are going to be pivotal if they were to try to upset anyone to make it towards the playoffs race in the future.
For me, when I looked at the 2 games and I looked at how one victory was picked up and one loss was picked up, I think for Sjokz, I would just like to see them be a little bit more proactive during the course of the mid-game. Yesterday, Trick really impressed me in terms of his early game. I had very low expectations based on what happened during the Spring Split. So for SK, I think if they do similar things to yesterday, but I would like to see Sjokz step it up during the earlier stages of the game and not allow themselves to just get run over. Vitality took charge of the Rift, and at no point did I feel like Sjokz were to find a way back into the game to arrest control.
And where I'm not sure of yet is whether or not that is the team's problem where they couldn't figure out how to come back, or a draft problem, because like Graves in the jungle and Enchanter support as well, like it's hard to do a lot proactively with that style of composition, especially when you're just getting outranged, the other team has a better front line. Like, it wasn't looking great for them. So maybe if we see some draft changes come through as well, they have more of a chance to showcase some mid-game strength.
The observant viewer will have noticed that the timer is fully counted down, but there is a small delay still in getting into Champion Select due to some issues with the client. The referees are doing tech checks right now, and of course, we'll hit the Rift as soon as we can, so bear with us just a little bit longer. We talked so much about the meta and about the importance that the bot lane can play. I want to talk a bit about Crownshot in particular and about Inax for Schalke 04. And I think Crownshot is really growing into this kind of symbol for SK Gaming. You know, I think we all kind of scuffed when he came in and we weren't not exactly sure. There was a bit of hype, but was it really there? But he is starting to deliver game after game for this roster.
Yeah, I think Crownshot is a really talented player. And I think that as long as SK continue to give him like picks like the Ezreal, he can show up in any game. Because it's a thought I've been having thinking about the different AD carry options you have in the game. It's like Ezreal, sorry, there's like thunder going outside. This is crazy.
There is a huge storm in Berlin.
It is insane.
I love this.
It's like very dramatic.
Right? Yeah, it just adds the suspense. No, but I think like Ezreal is the type of champion where he doesn't rely on his team to totally set you up. So when SK was struggling last split, Crownshot looked insane on his Ezreal, and then other champions that are more team reliant, it can be hard. So I know Crownshot has an Ezreal that can solo carry games. Now I want to see, with the team leveling up around him, if we can see that start to filter over into other picks.
But the thing is, it's even more important in the existing meta as well, as we are seeing late game, team fighting AD carries becoming more prevalent and more important, which means your front line needs to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right things.
Yeah.
Genax is a recently swapped top laner who prefers to play the bruiser, the carry type champions. It is a different skill set being on those tanks, so I need to see what he's going to be doing as well, and that is going to impact all of the ability to carry from the bot lane.
Yeah, and I like that you bring up Genax, because there was a thought I had about his play and about sort of transitioning roles in general. I think for a mid laner,
maybe they can't hear it, and
it's like, honestly, it's crazy. The camera pointed outside. It sounds like the heavens are falling.
Oh man, no, but I think transitioning lanes, especially mid to top lane, you think, well, a lot of the laning mechanics that you learn are going to carry over pretty naturally. So I think that's not going to be the biggest difficulty for Genax. What is sometimes difficult is transitioning into other types of champions within team fights, because you don't get as much practice practice on those sorts of things. We saw with his Ornn yesterday, laning phase went well, a lot of stuff went good, but in team fights, I think he can work on his positioning a little bit more, because when you're sort of leading the charge with the initiation, you need to know, yeah, sure, where's the enemy team at? Can I actually go for the engage? But is my team also close enough to back me up? And sometimes he was just a little bit too early, and I think that's one thing he can take a look at, tidy up, and become a really solid top.
I think maybe we've seen some successful swaps now in the last year or so, so we're not thinking about it that much. But you make a great point. It's not about the obvious things like which champions is he going to take into the top lane, but also you're kind of, the way you look at the map changes completely when you're in a different position and when you have to look at the map just from top lane and not from mid lane. You don't have to think about the same things, but you have to think about different things. Those micro positioning errors that you might do, like that's going to take a little bit of time. So that means that we have more potential there. And now he's up versus Odoamne.
Yeah, and also when you look at the players for the rest of the roster on the SK side, I believe some of these players are a little bit emotional, right? We've seen when Trick was having some troubles during the spring split, some of the looks, the pain that was shared on the team that was struggling. Assume they win today versus Schalke. Tomorrow, SK play Mad Lions. Let's just live in a world in which they take down Mad Lions tomorrow. SK Gaming could be looking at a 3-0. They could be looking at a roster with a recent swap, adding a new EU mid, potentially, to that mid lane in ZaZee, and of course having really good performances from Quickshot. If they go 3-0 in the debut week of the split, this is setting them up for success in the future, and I think this is going to be a team that can feed off confidence and can snowball this going forward.
Yeah, very well so. We talk a lot about ifs. We have a small delay, and so we are thinking in theoretical situations because we only have a one-game sample size, but I think it's only fair then that we also say the same thing for Schalke 04, right? The fact that they have those players on the roster, as said, an Odoamne, one of the most veteran top laners we have in the league now, up versus this newest top laner, let's say, even though he is, of course, quite experienced in his own right. For Schalke, this is very important to me. I need to see a better game out of them because I just don't even want to think about the fact that they will rack up the losses again. I want to see a different look for them. Ender, what would be your two guiders or guiding points for Schalke in this game?
Yeah, so honestly, looking at their game yesterday, I think draft we sort of mentioned is giving themselves more options to make plays happen. I would actually like to see Lurox on something that can have more of an early game impact as opposed to the Graves. I actually remember, some of his performance on like Lee Sins and these types of things where he could make more things happen, because I feel like if you're just trying to scale and you're considered one of the weaker teams in the LEC, you're not going to be able to beat teams at a game where you're both taking it easy or not really taking many chances. So I want to give more individual playmaking power to the players on this team.
All right, let's see what happens. We are about to get into picks and bans. The players are almost ready, so let's head over to our casters for SK versus Schalke.